Hey guys, this is Holland with the Wolverine.com, and we're going to recap 5 things we learned during the month of October. Before we do that, though, I want to invite you to subscribe to the Wolverine.com right now. Just $10 until next football season. That subscription gets you premium insider access to all your latest information on Michigan recruiting, football, basketball, everything included at the Wolverine.com, including our great message board community over at the Fort. That's $10 until next August. All right, October was a busy month for Michigan on the recruiting trail. Let's go one by one. Number one, first thing we learned is Michigan ended a 2-month drought. The Wolverines were able to get a commitment from 3-star Kansas City athlete Kendrick Bell, who gave the Wolverines a verbal pledge shortly following his official visit for the game against Penn State. Bell is the younger brother of Michigan wide receiver Ronnie Bell. He's a really intriguing athlete at 6'3", 170 pounds. It looks like he will get a shot to play quarterback once he arrives at Michigan. That is what he plays at the high school level, but he probably projects best as a wide receiver or defensive back. He did spend a decent amount of time with Michigan wide receivers coach Ron Bellamy on the OV, so I do think it's likely that that he does end up going the route of his brother and playing receiver. He definitely has the size and he has the athleticism. Now, it's hard to make a player comparison for Bell just because he does play quarterback at the high school level, but looking at his frame, his track numbers, and just the way he moves on film, I think he's similar to Amorion Walker last cycle, who Michigan recruited as a wide receiver, but I always said I liked more as a DB, and it looks like they are giving him some play in the secondary. Now, Amorion did have great straight line speed. His 40 time caught the attention of a number of major programs, but from a build, movement, athletic profile standpoint, I think Bell is in a similar mold as Walker, maybe not quite the athlete that Walker was as a recruit, but similar type of kids there. I think you're going to see Bell kind of follow in the footsteps of Amorion Walker. That would probably be my player comp for a guy currently on the Michigan roster that I've covered as a recruit. Again, Bell is an under-the-radar guy, only had one other FBS offer from UMass, but obviously Ronnie was a steal, and it looks like Kendrick has the potential to be a steal as well if they can get something similar out of Kendrick as they got out of Ronnie, then obviously it's a great land for Michigan. Second thing we learned is it looks like Michigan's done enough to close with Jadyn Davis. Now, they didn't quite close with Jadyn Davis, but it looks like they've done enough. Michigan had him on campus for the game against Michigan State. They really rolled out the maize and blue carpet. Davis has obviously visited, 4 times, I guess, over the last 5 months. And I think Michigan really, really moved the needle on this visit. I feel more confident in my pick than I ever have before. So confident that I don't think there's a need for Michigan to pursue any other 2024 quarterbacks right now. I hate the all the eggs in one basket approach. I think it's dumb. But in this scenario, I do think it's going to work out, and I don't think there's a need to change it coming out of his visit for Michigan State. Michigan checks basically every box that Davis is looking for. And then on top of that, there isn't a ton of competition for him. Georgia landed a quarterback commit in October in Ryan Puglisi. Alabama landed its quarterback commit in Julian Sayin. Clemson appears to be a little more focused on DJ Lagway. Davis did not make his scheduled visit to Penn State. North Carolina has dropped off. LSU appears to be way behind. So who is it going to be if it's not Michigan, right? Like, nothing makes sense. It's all Michigan right now. So I do think you'll see Davis make a decision shortly after his junior season comes to an end. Providence Day starts their playoff push this week, and they have a really good team. So obviously this recruitment could last another month, but really like the way Michigan is surging coming out of his latest unofficial visit. Let's go back to 2023. We learned a couple of things along the offensive line. So the third overall thing we learned is TALIAFI Ta'ala has risen up the offensive line board. He is a 3-star offensive tackle, likely projects as a guard at the next level out of Utah. Michigan hosted him for an unofficial visit for the game against Penn State, and they are looking to get him back for an official visit in December. Now, Ta'ala was thought to be really on the low end of the offensive line board, but I think Michigan's in a really good spot to end up with both Ta'ala and Nathan Afobe out of Georgia. Michigan is now out of the running for DJ Chester, who committed to LSU, so I think Ta'ala will become even more of a priority for Michigan moving forward, and I could definitely see him and Afobe in the class of the visit. For that game against Penn State went extremely well. He was super impressed with the visit. His father was super impressed with the visit. I think the Wolverines are trending in the right direction there. And again, not much competition here. It seems like Utah, the home state school, has dropped off a little bit. Arizona, Oregon State are some other schools really involved. But I think if you can get over the distance factor, then Michigan should be right in the running for Ta'ala. Looking at the fourth thing we learned, we'll stick with the offensive line theme. It's that Michigan is a true contender with two other West Coast offensive line targets in Caleb LOMU and Spencer FANO. Spencer FANO also out of Utah. Obviously, BYU and Utah would make a lot of sense, considering he is a Utah prospect and is of Mormon faith. But I do think Michigan's done a tremendous job. They hosted him for an unofficial visit in the offseason. The official visit for the game against Michigan State couldn't have gone any better. Sharon Moore has built up a really strong relationship here. On top of that, Michigan also has experience, recruiting the Mormon faith. They were able to land Andrew Gentry in the middle of his mission last cycle, and I think Gentry is a valuable recruiting tool for Michigan in the recruitment of FANO. I do think Oregon remains a big player, and Oregon does a terrific job of recruiting Polynesian players across the country. So I'm definitely wary of the Ducks. And Clemson is another school that is very involved for him as well. They will get him for an official visit before he makes a decision in December. I do think that the Wolverines are right up there on his list, though, coming out of the OV. And he's actually really good friends with Caleb LOMU out of Arizona. It seems like this one has turned into a Michigan-USC battle. USC will get him on campus for an unofficial visit before he makes a decision in November. But I think the Michigan OV was terrific. USC already has a big offensive line class, which I think is definitely playing in Michigan's favor. If Michigan can convince one of LOMU or FANO, and it'll probably have to be LOMU since he's deciding first, that distance isn't a big factor, then I think that that he could recruit the other, LOMU, if he commits first as expected, could recruit FANO to Michigan and help him convince him that distance isn't that big of a deal. But I think distance is really the holdup with both of these recruits. I think that USC, even though it's a little far from Arizona, still kind of gives off that West Coast vibe. But if Michigan's able to overcome that with LOMU, then it would be a big boost in the recruitment of FANO. Like I've mentioned, the two have become really, really good friends throughout the recruiting process, so they would definitely recruit each other, and Michigan is the only mutual school in the mix for both at this time. Last thing we learned is Michigan is trending up for a former Auburn commit in 4-star wide receiver KARMELLO English. He was a surprise visitor for the game against Penn State. Michigan is surging there right at the top of the list. Tennessee is another school that is involved. If they make a push, that's definitely one to watch. Kentucky has been involved. They had him on campus. I think if English decided right now, it would be Michigan, but it looks like he wants to take his time and decide later on in the process. So we'll see what other schools jump in the mix for him or rise up as contenders. But Michigan in a really good spot for English coming out of his unofficial visit. And he did tell me that he is going to make another visit before the early signing period. So much like LOMU and FANO, obviously English from a different part of the country down in the south out of Alabama. Distance is a negative against Michigan, but I don't think that it's too much of a negative that Michigan can't overcome. Ron Bellamy has been working extremely hard on English throughout the recruiting cycle. He went down to Alabama to visit English during the bye week, so English knows he's a priority. He knows what Michigan can offer both on and off the field. So, yes, I do think the Wolverines are in a great spot for KARMELLO English coming out of his October visit. So those are things we learned in October, guys. For all your latest Michigan recruiting information in November, make sure to subscribe to the Wolverine.com right now, just $10 until next football season.